Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today, can you have this slide up? So we are really happy to have you here for our technical meeting. As usual, we will be running through the day as displayed on screen, hopefully. While that is coming up, just to kind of summarize what we would expect to see as the session goes on. So after this moment, we will be having our president-elect come up to welcome the dignitaries that we have present here, both physically and online. After she's done, our president would give us his welcome remarks. President-elect will then come up for the introduction of the chairman. The chairman would then introduce the speaker, and then the presentation will go on or will commence. After that, we have a panel session. That panel session, before we begin, President-elect will again come up and introduce our panelists. The chairman will coordinate the panel review session. After that, we would have our Q&A session, which will be coordinated again by the chairman and the publicity secretary, which is me. So we will do both, those of us here physically in Echo Hotel and take questions from those online as well. So we will sort of wrap up with our photograph session that will be led by our president. Then announcements will follow by me, vote of thanks by president-elect, and then we would go for lunch. We hope to wrap up everything here by 1 so that we will have enough time to have our lunch and network, as the case may be. So relax and enjoy the session. P, I hand over to you now.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to our technical meeting of the month of July 2025. Today's topic is an exciting one, and I believe that everybody will be ready to listen and learn from the outcome of the project that Matrix carried out on 2 of their old wells. Unlocking value from abandoned and suspended wells. We know what abandoned wells are. Wells that have been abandoned, you've taken the environment back to its original state, and they brought that well to life. So I'm excited to listen to your success story today. And I also believe that everyone is excited to hear from you. So I welcome you all to the meeting of today. First, I welcome our president of NAPE, John Bosco F. NAPE, to this meeting. Let's especially welcome him. He's based in Port Harcourt, but he made himself available physically. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And to all our fellows that are here, some of them are online. We have our Vice President, Eyi Bazuaye, F. NAPE, online. Thank you very much, VP, for joining us at this meeting today. We also have in this room our IPP, immediate past president, Dr. Abiodun Ogunjobi, F. NAPE. Thank you for joining. We have Pastor Daniel Ndefo, past president of NAPE, FNAPE. Thank you for joining, sir. We welcome you for joining us today, and I believe more people will still come in. Like I said, what we are discussing today is a topical one, which I believe everybody will come to listen to. And all the participants online, we welcome you, and we look forward to an exciting session today. I'll come up from time to time to introduce our fellows as they join. Thank you very much. Sit back and enjoy this session. Thank you. Okay, so now, my president, please come give us your opening remark. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Madam President-elect. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, those here in the room, but also those online. And I formally also welcome you to the Technical and Business monthly meetings of the association for the month of July. We've, 6 months is already gone past now, right? And we're now looking on the other side of the year. But of course, we're not going to be doing any technical meeting in December. We'll also not be doing one in November. So it means we've got August, we've got September and October. So it's been quite a good journey. And I must again commend the PE, commend all the participants, because if I look around the room, I see very consistent members that continue to show up month after month here in the room and online. So I think we deserve a round of applause for that commitment. Now, if just a few things I want to mention today before I step down to take my seat. I want to specially recognize Matrix. Matrix in NAPE, it's not really, we've got our corporate members, and by the way, I'm not sure whether you've registered as a corporate member, so you have to register as a corporate member, maybe after today. But it was last year when, during the conference, which of course I was a PE then, we were able to bring them to sponsor one of our key events. I think it was a YP event. And they really sponsored it quite well at the highest level. They just came in and they came in big time. So I really want to say many thanks to Matrix. And now I also want to believe that this is the first technical and business monthly meeting of NAPE that Matrix is sponsoring. So, and I want to believe this is the first of many to come. So I really want to say thank you for the commitment, and it's quite a good partnership we're building up. And the topic you also want to be speaking on is also quite a good one. I remember 2 months ago, maybe one of these halls here at Eco Hotel, during our technical meeting, we spoke a lot around unappraised discoveries, stranded assets, locked-in potentials, because yes, we are explorers, we want to acquire seismic, we want to drill new wells, but at the same time, we must maximize what we have already. And I want to believe that today, that's what we're going to be hearing, the good news, well intervention, workover, how to re-enter a well and really make the best out of it. This is one of the best basins in the world, and it continues to deliver. So applying technology and different workflow and approach, I think, is something we should pride ourselves and continue to pioneer. So I was also looking forward to hearing from yourselves. Again, the panel of the discussants, I believe, is quite popular, and our chairman, who we've gone a long way. So I really want to say a big thank you for accepting also to chair this session today. Now, today also is going to be the last technical and business monthly meeting we're going to be having before NAPE at 50. So during the announcement, you're going to hear more from the public secretary. But I want to use this opportunity as your president to tell you that it is our event. It's going to be our anniversary, which is going to be happening barely 1 month from now, on the 14th of August. So the team has been working so hard to get ready for us. And there's going to be quite a big event in the morning here at Eco Hotel. And then eventually in the evening to recognize and honor the legacy of the last 50 years. But as we honor and celebrate the last 50 years, we will also be looking into the future to set the foundation for the next 50 years. Some of our founding members actually set the stage for us, which is what we've been building on. By the way, Matrix, I believe, is operating a marginal field today. And the reason why that is the case, and many others, is because of what NAPE have done at this nation. We pioneered and pushed that agenda for marginal field build rounds. And today we have many companies that are benefiting from that. So it was possible because of our founders and our founding members. It is now our time in the world of energy transition, digital transformation, and the rest, for us today to set the stage so that 50 years from now, the generation of that time will look back and say, we've done the right thing. And those are kind of the things we'll be discussing and extensively looking at during the NAPA at 50. So if you really want to participate, because it's going to be a bit limited space, if you really want to participate, I think there's been a link that's been sent. Just ensure that you register, and then be sure that you're only going to attend before you register. So I just wanted to give this insight, because we won't have that opportunity face-to-face this way until that event, except what you see in the media. And of course, following that, as you also hear the announcement, the conference is also building up big time. It's building up big time, and the plan is also continue to raise the tempo. And I know the PE is working round the clock with the CPC members to get it ready for November. So I just wanted to use the opportunity to really emphasize on this. And I can also say and let you know that you are spending the best, good of your time this morning. And I can tell you that you will enjoy the session we're going to be hearing. And on that note, I want to, again, on behalf of the Executive Council, the Board of Trustees, and the AC, the Advisory Council, formally welcome you to this month's technical and business meeting. Thank you very much.
I will introduce our chairman for today's session. But before I read out the citation, I want you all to please help appreciate Mr. Kunle Bakare. Because immediately I approached him, he didn't give any excuse. He willingly accepted to be the chairman for today's event, and he's been here even before many of us got in. So let's clap for him. Thank you very much. Kunle Bakare is an active member of NAPE and has over 25 years of industry experience as an exploration geoscientist. He contributed to several exploration projects in the land, swamp, and shallow offshore regions of the Niger Delta, and led a team of geoscientists in a successful multi-well HT drilling campaign, all during his several years of working in SPDC. Kunle is currently the chief geoscientist at First E&P Limited, a leading indigenous energy company operating mainly in the shallow offshore terrain. He has written and co-authored several papers presented at NAPE. He has written and co-authored several papers presented at NAPE. Kunle takes delight in the mentorship of young professionals, and he utilizes the opportunity provided by Shell Geoscience Summer School to regularly carry out internship at his office to mold young ones that have today grown to be professionals and captains of industry. Join me in welcoming the chairman, Kunle Bakare, to the podium.
Thank you very much, Madam President-elect. I welcome everyone to the July meeting of NAPE, Lagos. And having established all the protocols, I don't need to go over all that again. I will just go to the business of the day. We've got a presentation today that will be made by Anthony Ifediora. I'll talk about him. His presentation is on unlocking value from abandoned and suspended wells, techniques and lessons from the re-entry of AP1 and AT1 wells. Anthony is a production geoscientist at Matrix Energy. Matrix Energy Exploration and Production Company Limited, specializing in reservoir characterization, geomodeling, and well planning. He is a graduate of geology from Nnamdi Azikiwe University and has evaluated assets across the Niger Delta Basin, onshore, swamp, and offshore, collaborating in integrated teams to optimize field developments. Anthony is a member of NAPE, SEG, and AAPG, and is committed to knowledge sharing. He has also collaborated with NAPE UAP as an industry volunteer to Nnamdi Azikiwe University's alma mater in the Pairing to Teach scheme with the Nascent Education and Development Initiative as the virtual programs team lead, where he has spearheaded learning initiatives impacting a cumulative of 100 plus learners. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Tony, as I choose to call him, to the podium for his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be standing on established protocols. Today we are talking about unlocking value from abandoned and suspended wells. We'll be looking at the AT1 well and the AP1 well. And it's going to be a story taking assets that were determined to be basically abandoned in this case, and one suspended well, and then bringing value from those and bringing them to production. Before we continue, we have to discuss, first of all, what is a marginal field. So marginal fields generally are fields that are determined to have relatively small assets and have been left fallow for a long time. I believe a document by DPR, if I'm not mistaken, has recorded about 10 years and above. The fields we're looking at are a lot more than that. They are more than 10 years old. And generally, you have them with suspended and abandoned wells. Now, in this case, we have one abandoned well. And when I say abandoned, the well was properly abandoned. It was as if nothing ever happened there when we got there. If the community members hadn't told us there was a well there, we probably would have left the community to another community to look for the well. And one of the key things about abandoned wells is you really don't know. You have a lot of data uncertainty. Some of those wells are 30, 40 years old, and over that time, you will have data being lost because those data were gathered with analog methods. And then they could have been lost. Some of them, you don't have them. And you have bits of data. And then you're also looking at technological differences between when that data was acquired and where you are now. And you're wondering, what am I certain of? What am I sure of? And those form uncertainties for you in your re-entry program. The wells we are going to be talking about are in the Niger Delta Basin. The first of them is the AT1 AP1 well, which is in the Greater Uyeli Depot Belt, just about here. And then the next of them, the second one is the 81 well, which is in the coastal swamps, just here. And why we wanted to point out the locations of these wells is to show that we've replicated this strategy in 2 different locations, in 2 different depot belts, and the results were good. The successes were recorded. So it's not localized to just one part of the basin. It's been replicated in 2 different parts of the basin, and we believe that these strategies can be replicated across the basins for fields, especially marginal field operators with suspended or abandoned wells. The first well, which is the AP1 well, which we tagged the buried well. It literally was a buried well. It was drilled in 1980 to approximately 12,500 feet measured depth. The well was plugged and abandoned. The plugs were set at varying depths, and then the well casing was cut at about 14 feet deep, and then it was covered with a plate, welded shut and buried. The entire area the slabs were all removed, the pits, the cellar pits, the mud pits were all backfilled. The only thing that can even indicate the presence of that there was an oil field there were just 2 things. One of them was the access road was left because the community still used it. Then the second thing was that the community members themselves, who were old enough to have witnessed the drilling, could testify that there was a well there. One of them actually still had part of the cut 26-inch conductor pipe, which he showed as evidence, because we had to look for the well. The well itself was then found with a magnetometer, but we had to look for it. There was no wellhead. This is a picture of the well after we had excavated. There was no wellhead in place. And one more thing was, none of the reservoirs were tested. There was no, so what that meant for us is we didn't have confirmation. We had the logs, but none of them were tested. So we had that uncertainty. If they were not tested, what confidence do we have? So those were uncertainties we carried. The second well, which is the 81 well, which we tagged with the 121-foot scab liner. This is a very interesting well, drilled in 1992 to about 11,000 feet measured depth. This one was suspended, not abandoned. But however, we noticed a 121-foot scab liner in the well. Now, this scab liner, there was no documentation to tell us that there was a scab liner in the well, except one thing, a schematic. A schematic that had no description. In fact, initially we had no idea what it was until one of our engineers looked at it a second time and said, I think this is a scab liner. And then our entire re-entry strategy changed at that point. So these are the kind of circumstances you face when you go into to re-enter decade-old wells, decade-old assets. You have paucity of data and you're not certain of what you even have. The scab liner in place was above the reservoir, the hydrocarbon-bearing reservoirs. Now, we were not certain the reason why that scab liner was in place. Because at that depth, based on the logs, the reservoirs there were not hydrocarbon-bearing. But what we believe could be a reason was that there was a reservoir at that depth, though not hydrocarbon-bearing, was suspected to be even from petrophysics. And we believe there is a possibility that it was perforated, and then they realized it wasn't water, it wasn't hydrocarbon-bearing, and then they probably could, in trying to seal off that area, had to put in a scab liner. Now, a scab liner is, it's a liner, it doesn't get to surface, It's just in the well in a particular section, and they use it to seal off that section so you will not have fluid coming to surface from that part of the reservoir. And then they did that before suspending the well. The wellhead, the picture we are seeing there is the wellhead at the time we got the assets. The wellhead was basically highly corroded, and it was in very poor conditions. The well, however, was tested on 2 reservoirs. However, on reviewing the reports, that PVT reports, the company that did the analysis stated that the samples were not representative because they were very small, in their opinion. So that then created another uncertainty. We have 2 tested reservoirs, but then those that did the analysis said they are not representative. So we had to carry that as part of our uncertainties before we went ahead with the reentry. So before we re-entered, one of the key things we did was to do some pre-reentry activities. I don't want to use the word studies because it doesn't just revolve around desktop studies. We have to do some pre-reentry activities. Apart from interacting with the community and doing your environmental baseline studies, some of the things we did was to gather the legacy data as much as we could get. And the reason is, in geology, you can't have all the data. You might not have all the data. But what little you have to make use of. And so we had to leverage the legacy data we had and also get data from analog fields. And that helped us to be able to understand the field and what's happening around the field to make informed decisions. Then we had to go ahead to understand the uncertainties. And one of the key things here in one of these assets is, I'll point to the seismic data itself. So there was a story, it's a story, but it happened to us, and it was scary at the time. In order for us to understand the story better, I would just display this. Okay. Now, looking at these 2 seismic sections, you would want to say that they are probably either 2 sections from the same seismic volume or from 2 different seismic volumes, right? But what if I told you that these 2 seismic sections, which are actually composite sections, arbitrary lines, are the same line? The same line, but 2 different seismic vintages in the exact same position. This is the story. This was the initial seismic vintage that we got. This was it after it was reprocessed. So this was it initially. After reprocessing, this was it. You see this barrier here. This is uninterpreted. The lines you see there are wells. This barrier here is a barrier that is sealing. And that's before the reprocessed seismic, we were evaluating the specific volumes. We had estimated our volumes. When we discovered that barrier and we evaluated the volumes, we realized a reduction of up over 70% of our volumes. And things like this is a game changer for a lot of companies. Imagine you are carrying 100 million barrels, and then you realize what you have is 30. And you had planned your entire field initial, because we had an initial field development plan, and you had planned your initial field development plan for 100, and now you have 30, and you have to go back to the drawing board. These were the challenges we faced. So we had uncertainties from things like our seismic. We also had uncertainties around things like your deviation data. Deviation data is seen to be a very basic data. But where you have a reservoir that is, say, 500 feet wide from fault to fault, and then you took the deviation data from 1980, taken with the moving average method, and now you have better technologies, minimum curvature, and then you take a new deviation data, and you realize about 11 feet shift in your seismic data, in your well, from where you thought it was to where it actually is with current technologies. And then you probably give your driller a tolerance of about 20 feet, but you are looking at 11 meters shift. You begin to realize that you have problems which you have to surmount. So these were uncertainties we had to carry, some of which we realized as we went on, some of which we had noted at the very beginning. And because of that, data acquisition formed a significant part of our entire campaign, because we wanted to, irrespective of the data we had, we wanted to acquire new data to reinforce the old data and also acquire other data that we probably didn't have. Then we went ahead to re-enter the wells. We started with the AP1 well. That was the one we re-entered first. And the well that was buried was first located with a magnetometer. We had to first of all find the well. We used a magnetometer to find, with the help of the community members, find where the well actually was. Excavated it with a tractor. And then after we had done that, we went ahead to prepare the location. But then this casing is 14 feet below the ground level. We had to extend it to surface before we can re-enter this well. So what we did was to cut the casing open first. This was the well after we had excavated. We cut it open, and then we had to, this is the 958 casing in the middle. Then you have the 1338 and the 26-inch conductor. We had to cut them this way in order for us to, because we had a strategy to extend the casings. So after we had done that, we used the casing patch to extend the 958 casing. So we had the patch on the casing and then extended the 958 casing to surface. Then welded the 1338 and the 20-inch conductor, 1338 casing and 20-inch conductor, bringing them all up to casing, to surface rather. Then went ahead to install the wellhead and the BOP, blowout preventer. This well, we planned to re-enter and also sidetrack. Then we had to do a top-up job, cement top-up job, to cement in between the 958 1338 annulus and the 1338 26-inch conductor annulus. Then we milled the plugs, the cement and the bridge plugs in the well, and cleaned up the well and prepared for the sidetrack. But before we did the sidetrack, we actually acquired some data, which we'll look at later in the presentation. For the 81 well, this was a slightly different scenario. This was not buried, but then the wellhead was in poor conditions. So what we had to do was first dredge the location. Remember the picture in the beginning where we had the wellhead in what looks like a forest. We had to clear the area and dredge the location so we can have that. And then after we had done that, we had to do casing tieback and repair. The wellhead was in poor conditions, so we had to make it look good enough. And another thing there was, what we used here was a hydraulic walkover unit, not a rig. So we had to repair the casing so it could carry the hydraulic walkover unit. What we did was we split two 14-inch casing and then wore them on the 1338 casing head housing and welded it in place. Then used an 18-inch gusset safety clamp, which was installed below the casing head housing. And then to extend we then with a two split 24-inch split casing to reinforce and extend the 24-inch stovepipe below the gusset. And then we had what was like this, to look like this. Before we then went ahead with the re-entry. Of course, we dumped cement in the 14-inch, 24-inch annulus, milled the plugs, and now this had another story. The scab liner in place, we tried to mill it because that scab liner in place, it was more or less a restriction. We tried to mill it, but we were using a 340 horsepower rig, hydraulic walkover unit rather, and we couldn't mill that liner. We had to change our re-entry strategy. It affected our re-entry strategy, affected our wellbore cleanup. Instead of using bit and scraper run as we typically do, below the scab liner, we had to use a brush because the bit and scraper wouldn't get the ID of the scab liner, which we were able to estimate using a tool we'll talk about later in the presentation. We found it was 6.455 inches, which was a lot smaller than the ID of the 958 casing. So we had to go in with a brush, which we tried as much as we can to clean the wellbore, and it was clean enough to run tools into the well to acquire data. This well was not sidetracked. So, like I said, we attempted to make the scab liner and we had to re-strategize. And we ended up re-entering the well and cleaning it up. One of the things I had mentioned earlier that we planned to do in these wells, apart from getting them to completing them and getting them to production, was acquiring data, because we planned to develop these assets, and we need data from these wells to be able to go forward with our field development. So one of the things we did first was to, before any other thing, confirm the integrity of the wellbore. The tool we used here was the DigiConnect MTD-MFC tool, which is a magnetic thickness detector, which measures metal loss in the casing, and the MFC, multi-finger caliper, which measures the internal diameter of the casing, the ID of the casing. And both tools are complementary. Information from one part of one of these gives you insights into the conditions of your wellbore. Okay, so what the MTD measures, it uses electromagnetic energy, which is sent into the wellbore, and then when that electromagnetic waves gets into the casing, it induces eddy currents, and then the tool measures the decay of the eddy currents. Now, how fast the eddy currents decay is directly proportional to the thickness of the casing. So using that, they can tell where you have thicker, where the casing is thicker and where it's thinner. The multi-finger caliper, on the other hand, gives you the ID of your casing. Now, where both of them come together is in a part of your casing where you have corrosion. Your MTD has detected corrosion, but your MFC did not detect any corrosion or penetration. You can then tell that the corrosion is on the external part of the casing, because the MTD detects internal and external corrosion, but the MFC only detects internal corrosion. Now, where your MTD has detected corrosion and your MFC also detects corrosion that is proportional to that, you know that you have internal corrosion. So we use this tool to be able to quantify the integrity of the two wells. The results we got from this was, irrespective of how old these wells are, AT1 was about 30 years, plus or minus, and then AP1 at the time of re-entry was 43 years. irrespective of the age of those wells, we found out that generally we observe moderate to very light corrosion in these wells, which was good enough for us to go ahead with our operation. And then we use the tool, the MFC tool, to be able to get a 3D view of the scab liner. And we're able to get the main ID of the scab liner, which helped us in our operation going forward. Aside this, we had no critical barriers in the well. There were no other issues, and the casing integrity was sufficient for us to go ahead with our operations. We also ran another tool in the well because aside the casing integrity, we also had issues around the fluid type, where our contacts. We have that information, but we needed to reinforce it. And what we did was we ran the Baker Hughes RPM2 reservoir performance monitor, which we deployed to evaluate the fluid contacts and the hydrocarbon type. The tool uses pulse neutron generators and also high gamma ray detectors. So the pulse neutron generators, it generates the neutron, which goes into the reservoir. And then when the neutron interacts with the formation, it generates gamma ray, which is then recorded by the gamma ray detectors. And it integrates the carbon oxygen analysis with GR-based gas saturation techniques. This tool is, why I like this tool in particular is that it delivers three-phase saturation. So it tells you the saturation of your reservoir at different points for oil, gas, and water. The results from this is what the result, I believe this is from the AP1 well. And the results were able to confirm for us what we already had from our petrophysics. It confirmed the hydrocarbon types, or evaluated the hydrocarbon type rather, and confirmed our contact depth. So we knew exactly our contacts, and what this helped us do was to know exactly where we wanted to perforate. Because in as much as we had it from our petrophysics, we needed to get that confirmation before we go ahead. And these are case holes, so we couldn't acquire your conventional conventional resistivity and neutron density. So we had to use this tool. So the results from this reinforced what we already knew from our petrophysical evaluation. And after we tested the two wells, reservoirs and the two wells, the fluid type that the tool had given us were actually consistent with the well testing. One of the interesting things we actually observed with this tool was we had a reservoir, actually two reservoirs, where the results were inconclusive. One of them was a reservoir that was supposed to be water wet, but we had reports that included them as being hydrocarbon bearing. I'm there to confirm if those were water wet or hydrocarbon bearing. Our in-house petrophysics and our petrophysical analysis evaluated them to be water bearing, but we needed that confirmation from another source. And we ran the tool, and the tool evaluated that reservoir to be water bearing. Another one was a reservoir that was gas bearing, and that was a reservoir that was even tested to be gas bearing, and the tool confirmed that for us. So generally, what we looked at, we were able to get, we had our legacy data and legacy data analysis, and we had the data we acquired from our reentry pro campaign, and we were able to integrate both of them to be able to get into our reservoir models. Now, for the successes we recorded in the 81 well, we were able to sidetrack this well to target certain reservoirs more optimally than they were recorded, they were targeted in the existing well. And the well was then completed as a dual producer. And also tested on both reservoirs. We had extended well tests for these reservoirs. For the 81 well, we re-entered the well and then we completed the well as a single producer, and we tested that reservoir. So in conclusion, the strategy we deployed, it summed it to about 5 points or 6. So one of them is planning. Planning is crucial, but the reality is you don't have all the information at the very beginning where you're entering wells like this. So your planning has to be dynamic. You have to be ready to change your planning strategy midway through your operations. Second is you have to account for uncertainties. You have uncertainties, they are always there, but these ones are a lot, and you have to account for them. It could be from insufficient data, it could be from technological differences between when the well was drilled and when you are entering the well. So you have to account for uncertainties. The third is continuous analysis. So we had the pre-entry analysis. We were analyzing as we were doing the re-entry. So as we got the data, we are doing real-time analysis of that data. And after the analysis, when we had a bigger picture, we did another set of analysis. So continuous analysis, it gives you information that you can use to make decision promptly. The last two, I grouped them as one, approach and collaboration. The approach we did was an integrated, cross-disciplinary approach, which works hand in hand with collaboration. We have to be able to collaborate. Engineering, subsurface, operations, HSE, economics. You have to be able to collaborate across all these teams to be able to take assets that we are deemed, that we are suspended and abandoned, and create value from those assets. Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Be ready for questions. I'm sure both people physically here and those online must have jotted so many questions. Thank you very much for this presentation. And at this point, we will invite, please help me with the paper. We will invite our panelists. Excuse me, that one. Yes. We invite our panelists to the podium for the panel session. Please, speaker, you can have your seat. You know, the presentation we just listened to, in short, what I can say is that our ideas as NAPI is not only to find oil and gas. Our ideas also help to trace abandoned wells and breathe life into abandoned wells. That's one thing we've seen here, because that well has been abandoned and they still look for the well and brought it back to life. So let's give them a round of applause again. So please, I will invite our chairman to please join us here while I read out the profile of the panelists. So the first person I'll call is Akinpelu Shitu. Akinpelu Shitu is the Chief Technical Officer of Matrix Energy Exploration and Production Company Limited, with over 20 years of upstream oil and gas experience. He has executed upstream projects for Total E&P, Sapetro, Sterling Global, and MPDC FHN. His technical and leadership experience spans drilling, well engineering, field development planning, and asset management. Akinpelu is an active member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPE, and a petroleum engineering graduate of the University of Ibadan. Can we have you on the stage, Mr. Akinpelu Shitu? Thank you for coming. Next is, please, you will help me with your son, Mr. Pius Akabosu Imogeme. I hope I called it right. Pius is a cased oil specialist and geoscience technical advisor in Baker Hughes with over 15 years experience in the industry. Expertise in pulsed neutron logs analysis, PNC 3D, carbon, oxygen, and sigma. Cement bond logs evaluation and interpretation, production logs evaluation and interpretation, open hole logs analysis and volumetrics, and geoscience technical project management. He earned BSc in physics, PGD in petroleum geoscience, and MSc in exploration geophysics in Delta State University, Laser Petroleum Geoscience Center, and University of Benin, respectively, and a certification in project management. He is married with 3 children. Please join us on the podium. So at this point, I will hand over to our chairman, who will take us through this part of our program today. Thank you very much.
Okay. Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. Now that we have the panelists and the presenter seated, I will attempt to summarize what I had from the presentation just before we go into allowing the panelists to give their own insight also into what they had. And then we will open up for questions and answers. So Tony took us through the re-entry into one suspended and one abandoned well in marginal field. We all know what he started by defining what marginal fields are. I think all of us here have an idea of what marginal fields are. And we've had some rounds of the acquisition of marginal fields by our various Nigerian operators in recent times. He talked about the challenges, challenges and uncertainties. Some of the challenges were in terms of the location of the wells. One of the wells was found to be was suspended, but suspended below ground level, about 14 feet or meter below ground level. So it took some efforts and community collaboration to get to the location of the well. He talked about the other well being having a wellhead, so it's there, but it has been abandoned, and it also has some scab liner in it, adding to the challenges that they have to contend with. And then they had to look at geology. So where you think you've got large volume, initially you carry out a reprocessing of your seismic only to find out that your reservoir is not really as big as it is because you've got some sealing faults that are really in between it. So this creates a challenge of economics, of course, because now you were initially thinking of a certain volume of hydrocarbon that you want to exploit, only to find that you don't have as much as that. Now you are saddled with the project and you've got to get it done economically, so you need to be smart at how you handle it. Trying to see what else. Then he went on to tell us the methodology for re-entering these wells. First is to establish the integrity of the well. you have the casings in place, and you need to know that you can actually even work in it. How do you determine this? You need to establish the steel, that the pipes are still have integrity in them. So they use the two methods of MTD, which is metal thickness detector, and the MFC, which is multi-finger caliper. Both of these will determine the level of corrosion, both internally and externally of the casing. I was able to follow this easily because my previous work before oil and gas was geotechnics. So I do know that sometimes we want to find the integrity of some pile that has been made long ago, and you use some of these kind of methods. But more importantly for us as geoscientists is the RPM. Bakare is here to also answer some questions when those questions are asked. That will spare Tony a bit. RPM, which Bakare had to use to establish the petrophysical parameters which they had, maybe from the well reports that they have, but they want to confirm that this is really so they had to use RPM, which is a method for determining fluid type and contacts in cased holes. And the result of all of this was that they were able to get the reservoirs to produce from one level in the well that was initially plugged, and they were able to sidetrack in the first well into two different reservoirs. Of course, that is the story. That is what we want to hear. We want to know that the company has now come to business after surmounting all the challenges and taking care of all the uncertainties encountered. And this is also as a result of continuous analysis, and that's continuously working the project, facing challenges as they come, knowing that they will be different from what you started with, but you need to be dynamic and you need to be able to react to these challenges as they come. And finally, multidisciplinary collaboration. I hope this has done some justice to what he presented. Just rephrasing it in my own words, layman, and also trying to make everyone understand so that when you ask questions that are very technical, you want to keep it within what has been presented. So I would allow Mr. Shitu to, within 2 minutes each, to give an insight into, maybe further insight into what has been presented. He is going to be talking from the angle of matrix, the asset owners, and then eventually Pius will also go ahead and talk about a little about RPM, and then we can open up for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. For your last statement, that Pius will be talking from the angle of RPM, that I'll be talking from the angle of the asset owner. Incidentally, well, Pius knows, about the same story of the asset as well. So he's more or less also going to give a succinct view on how it went. Now, one of the wells, the AP1, was actually buried, as you have done. It took us a long time to even figure out where it actually was. And we were able to extend, as Anthony has enumerated, to the surface, and we're still able to sidetrack and, make something out of the well. On the other one, the 81, it was more than just re-entering a discovery well. It was more of a walkover thing, because as we progress along, we continue to encounter challenges that was never, envisaged at all, majorly due to the paucity of data. So it was like, okay, let's enter this, and based on the initial plan, we had to, about 4 or 3 times, had to redesign the completions. But eventually, too, it's also a success story. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. So, like the speaker has said, the ROPM tool is a reservoir performance monitoring tool. It's 33 feet in length, and for easy deployment through narrower tubing is 1.7 inch. So the primary function of this tool is to identify and quantify saturations behind casing. So it could be deployed and could identify gas, no matter how little that gas is. It's very sensitive to gas for the PNC 3D, and for the carbon oxygen, it will identify the oil and delineate that from water. And we are able to integrate that to give us the three-phase saturations, identify the contacts where you have the gas oil and the oil and water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Akinpelu and Pius. I think the floor is open right now for questions. We'll start from the hall and then we'll go all out. Who has the microphone for the audience? Okay. So the question can actually be directed to any of us here, not just the presenter, and the question can be answered.
My name is Odedere. I'm a retired person. I find it difficult during your planning stage that you find it that you are unable to locate the well in time. Because even from old Schlumberger logs, you should be able to locate it, particularly the onshore. You should be able to locate the exact location of the well. And it's so strange to me that it's through the community. It means that there are no cellar pit or nothing in the offshore where the old well was drilled. Because from Schlumberger, you should be able to locate the exact location of that well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that. Primarily, and as we've mentioned earlier, data was an issue. Then eventually the speaker also mentioned that we were able to eventually get the spot with the aid of equipment. But what I'm saying is, on the surface, you won't see anything. The casing, the wellhead was severed and buried it got about 40 feet below the surface. Everything was back to the natural environment with foliage over the grass. So that's why we had to involve community in what the speaker was talking about. But eventually, when we used magnetometer, we were able to locate the casing with the coordinates as time went by that we got the casing. Yeah. Thank you.
Just to add a little to it, I was just telling the president, I had an experience working SPDC, and I've always been exploration, and we had an exploration prospect, which we thought we could re-enter into using an existing well that was drilled in Bonneyfield. And so we drilled the Bonneyfield, we have the coordinates, but you then need to locate where it is, and we went in the rivers, in the swamp, what's it called, in the creeks. And we were in the boat. I was particularly the exploration person, and then we had geomatics person. So we were able to locate the area, the general area. But because mangrove had grown over the whole area, and this well was initially drilled in 1974, here we were in early 2020s, looking for this well location. It had to be the community helping us to locate where we were going to find, and we had to look under the mangrove to find this well, the casing of the well shooting out in the water. So yeah, you have the coordinates, but it's still another thing to get the exact location because other things have happened over time in that area.
Thank you very much, sir. Congratulations to Matrix. But to encourage people that might want to venture to what you actually did, was the legacy data helpful? You said you're talking about analog. Did you convert it to digital data? Or you reprocessed? Or what are those things that are able to help you? Because those seismic sections that you showed, I look at them, it look like a 2D, not really 3D. They really helpful for another set of people or a company that might want to do such in the future, that they will not have to be spending so much before they are able to give them that confidence. Because like you are laying like a legacy, or you are laying a good example that even abandoned wells can still be productive. So it's a very good fit achievement. I really love it. Thank you. I'm from Unilag. My name is Peter Jakai.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peter. So for the data I displayed earlier, we actually 3D seismic data. I just took sections of the data before reprocessing, and another section, the same arbitrary line of the reprocessed data, so we can have apple for apple comparison, and then we saw those differences. For the log data, in 1980, most of those data were acquired, they were analog. Basically, the results were not on digitized as we have them. But then the data was digitized, and then it was evaluated. So first of all, luckily for us, we didn't have to do the digitization ourselves. It was already digitized. We just purchased them from NDR. But we had the suite of logs. We had your gamma resistivity, neutron density. We had, in one of the assets, we had VSP. In another one, that AP1, we had VSP. In 81, we didn't even have check shots. We had to use analog check shots from an analog well, which was about 8 kilometers away, which added to our uncertainties. But we still had to use it like that because, something is better than nothing. You have to go what you have. Then, as you go, you then get your own data and reevaluate and keep evaluation, continuous evaluation. That's the key thing here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. My name is Sulaiman. I want to ask about the pressure regime in that field, because you drill up to like 12,000 feet. It's quite, somehow deep. So, did you have any information about the pressure at that deep? That's number one. Number two is that what informed you? Because I look at the seismic, the first one was relatively okay. What informed you to do the reprocessing? Thank you.
So for your first question, thank you, Mr. Suleiman. For your first question, we had no pressure data. For the well that went to 12,500 feet, we had no pressure data up to that depth. What we had, however, was the mud weight at specific depths, which was used as an input for the geomechanics. Interestingly, in that well, at around 10,500 feet, we had the increased mud weight from about 9.7 to about 12.1, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a very large increase in such a short window. And we suspected there was a pressure ramp, which was one of the reasons why we had to sidetrack, and we didn't get up to that depth in the sidetrack, because we had to avoid that pressure ramp. We believe the reason for that pressure ramp was because the well went through a fault at around that depth. But then we had no data as to the pressures at that depth. Like I said, most of these wells, you really don't have a lot of data. And you can't even say if they were even acquired ab initio or if you just don't have them. That's one, on the one hand. Then for your second question, what informed the reprocessing? The interesting thing was, it's a different story actually, but I will just breeze through it. So when we had that asset, that's the AP1, that's the Apani field, we had the asset and we had evaluated the reservoir to be quite extensive. If I'm not mistaken, 7 kilometers extensive. That was very extensive. And we decided, instead of re-entering, the well was at the flank of the structure. Instead of re-entering that well, we decided to go 1.2 kilometers up deep to drill a new well. I mean, it's not far, it's close. What was the worst that could happen? I mean, so unfortunately, we drilled that well and it was dry, water wet. We realized we got the process data and we realized we are drilling into 2 fault blocks. And the block we are drilling into was smaller than we thought. So that's the story behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And again, my name is Yahya Okai. I'm more concerned about the environmental concern within the AP1 and 81. You didn't tell us more of the situation you encounter as regards the environmental concern in terms of the structural instability around the well, and then what you did to resolve contaminations for 2 wells that were 45 years old, 33 years old, before you did the re-entry. How do you deal with those concerns, please? Thank you.
So if I get your question correct, you want to know the environmental considerations we had before we went ahead with the re-entry, and are you talking about how we controlled our effluent waste?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for the AP1, it's a land location. So we prepared the location. We had our waste pits, and when we re-entered the well, we dumped our waste, whatever waste we had, into the waste pit, and we had NUPRC approved contractors that came to evacuate. For the 81, it's a swamp location. So we also had, there was no waste pit in that scenario. We had to badge the waste. So when we had, we had badges on location, and then we put the waste into some of these, I can't remember the exact name, containers on the badges, and skips, thank you, that's the word. We had skips, and we had to put the waste into the skips and evacuate them using the same strategy, NUPRC approved contractors. Now, when you talk about environmental concerns, before we did any operation, we first of all carried out our EBS, that's Environmental Baseline Survey, to be able to, which would be an input for our AIA, Environmental Impact Assessment. So we had safety concerns as part of our operations, and we kept monitoring, making sure we don't dump into the environment. We had, for the land locations, we had drainage pits around an evacuation pit to evacuate all waste. So nothing from the assets in the field goes into the environment. They're evacuated. Thank you.
Can I say something? Yes, my name is Daniel Ndefo. I worked with Elf Petroleum, which is now Total Energies. When I saw this topic, what interested me, but why I'm here, really is to hear about wells that were drilled in the late 60s and early 70s. Because when I hear of 1980, 1992, at that time, every data you need on the well is available, right from the drilling reports, from the mud log reports, the drilling rate, the gas shows, they're there. You can just, in fact, even without logging, from the drilling rate, you can get where is shale or sand, because you see it before you do your gamma ray. But my question, now that you are saying this, because I can see the efforts you made trying to re-enter an old well. What is the level of volume of production in what you are doing? I know maybe you don't want to tell us that, but are you really, because that's what interests me. All these wells that were plugged and abandoned. In fact, when I started work in 1974, 75, it was one of the things my manager told me to do, to begin to find out why were these wells abandoned. That time, you could exchange, you could ask a company, do what is called data, trading, exchange. So you can get at least the coordinates, the well logs, that is the resistivity logs, and then the gamma ray, you can get them. And you can look and see. You can even get one strike line and one deep line, that's all. But what really made you, encouraged you? So, I plugged an abandoned well, probably you were pursuing. I wanted to see or to hear that, this well abandoned is producing such and such volumes, because so many things have been abandoned in the Niger Delta today. And at that time, nobody was talking about gas. Once you see gas, it's written plugged and abandoned. But there are so many of them today that, are like that. So if you don't mind, can we have an idea of the BOPD? Can you reveal that to us, to encourage us?
Okay. So I think I need to put it into context. These assets are green assets. So there was no production. These wells were just drilled and suspended or abandoned. So what made us go into it is it shows the level of motivation we have as a company. We are ready to do hard things, and we do what it takes to move it forward. And that's how our mother company has been able to go from being a mere supply and trading company to being an international company in the space of just 20 years. So we are driven, we're motivated, and we'll do all it can to make sure we come to the top of this industry. Thank you.
I think without necessarily talking for Matrix, just talking about the fact that it's a marginal field means that there was hydrocarbon discovery in those wells. Just that they probably did not meet the economics of the mother company that drilled the well initially, and for that reason it's been stranded. It's not been developed further. So Matrix buying those fields means that they were ready to develop whatever it is that was discovered, which they would have seen during their due diligence before they buy. And then they would decide, do I want to drill a new well, or do I want to use the existing well? Probably that is what led them. Now I'm guessing from what is known to what may not be known to us, or what they don't want to tell us. But I mean, we are all geoscientists here, and we need to know, we need to be thinking, why would you want to take this line of action? So you decide that I have the option of drilling a new well or re-entering this existing well. What are the challenges of drilling this new well? What are the uncertainties I'm going to encounter? What do I stand to gain? What's the economics of doing all of that? So once you decide all this and you think it is more economical for you to re-enter the well, irrespective of the challenges, then you go for it. That's what I would like to say, at least for the benefit of those who may not have thought about it that way.
Thank you so much, sir. In addition to that, so prior the sidetrack well that was drilled, we deployed the RPM tool, the pulse neutron tool, the Baker Hughes pulse neutron tool. With that, we were able to confirm that those reservoirs were still at original condition. The fluid saturations were still at original condition. So that alone gave Matrix some confidence to invest more by drilling a sidetrack well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just to add to that, as the chairman has mentioned, before we embarked on the tedious exercise of looking for the coordinates, trying to get a wellhead and get a casing and all that, and going into re-enter that, we had weighed that versus, sinking a new well, and it was commercially okay for us at that time. And that's why we kept on in the pursuit of that. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Coyote from Damatan Nigeria Limited. And the question I have today is regarding the abandoned well. You mentioned something about the internal condition of the casing, having this moderate to light corrosion undergoing. So my question now is, what if probability that the condition you meet the internal casing is like it's undergoing a high corrosion? What does that imply, and what's the impact you get?
So there are so many things that can cause corrosion in your well. However, if you have very high, now I said generally these wells had very light to moderate corrosion. There are localized points of relatively higher corrosion, and what you would do is you would ask questions. It's an evaluation. Is it localized, or is it across an entire zone? And where it is, would it impact further operations? So there'll be questions that would, follow-up questions that will be asked, and further evaluation, and then the geologists and engineers would put their heads together to decide, is it going to hamper our operations? What is our strategy? If we're not looking to, now for the well like the AP one, where we had to sidetrack, after we sidetracked, we didn't use a casing to secure the well. What we used was a liner. And then if our casing, the existing 958 casing had poor integrity, that would hamper that operation. But then, because that casing generally was in good conditions, we could deploy that. So it will just affect your strategy going forward, and you'd have to evaluate. The end thing is, in whatever you are presented with, you find a way to navigate through the challenges and get to the end point. Thank you.
I'm sure there are several people online questions online. So
Yeah.
we want to give opportunity to those online to ask questions. But just before we get the first question from online, I have a question also to Pius concerning, or maybe the whole team really, concerning the RPM. At what point was the RPM data acquired? You have assessed the hole, you have drilled out the materials that are in the hole before you did the RPM, right? Okay. Okay, just want to confirm that.
Yes.
Let's go online. Okay.
Yes, they milled whatever materials that was in hole before they deployed the tool. The tool, it's a slim tool, 1.7 inch, for easy deployment to even tubing. So, but in this case, there was no tubing, it was just casing. So it was accessible.
Okay, thanks so much for the brilliant questions and the responses that we've had. Hope you have more understanding now. So we go online. We have about 3 questions and we would go through. So the first one is, what if the well after confirmation is found to mainly contain water? Are there other planned uses for it? The second part to that question is, how possible is it to get an inventory of both abandoned and spent oil and gas wells to use them for other renewable energy resources that needs the expertise of oil and gas professionals? So this question is from Prince Will Okechukwu online. Should I read it again?
Yeah. So I would respond to the first question about the water wells. So I have this joke I usually tell in the office that we're an oil and gas company, not water corporation. So if we drill, now the real thing is we have a well that was dry, that is dry, and you just have to strategize. What do you want to do with that well going forward? We are not here to produce water. However, that well can serve as an injection, as a water disposal well for you. So that is one thing you can do with such a well. So you wouldn't say, oh, because I drilled a... Yes, it can send some people out of business, but not Matrix anyways. Thank you.
So the second part to it is, how possible is it to get an inventory of both abandoned and spent oil and gas wells to use them for other renewable resources that needs the expertise of oil and gas professionals?
Okay, you want to speak on that? Okay, I can actually speak on that. If he's talking about maybe a dry well, like heating water, right? So like the way the renewable energies we're going, like most companies right now, there is energy attached to various companies right now in Nigeria. So we are looking at renewables, right? So for the water, it could be used even for geothermal. It all depends on investors and the location of the well. So when you're looking at geothermal, looking at the location and the accessibility to its end users. So as a matter of fact, even the abandoned wells that are wet right now, over time, when investors are interested and they put in the economics to know their return on investment, it's a very good area to also look at the geothermal to generate electricity or other forms of energy, heat energy for various purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So the next question is anonymous attendee is asking, how long was the whole process in terms of days?
Which of the processes, please? You mean the project? Okay, I see. Like starting the project and putting the well into production, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Matrix?
Yeah, right from when we commission the well operation to the completion, from the time of trying to locate the wellhead, from this wellhead work, it took us about 3.5 months to completion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next question, view of time, is from Ogenero Alele. Were they hold up debt in the wells as you re-entered? How did you free up this hold up debt?
So let me just answer hold up generally. So before a tool is deployed, they will do a slick line or kind of dummy run to know where we are the hold up depth, because no one wants to go beyond the hold up depth. So once that is noted, so the tool for the acquisition of whatever data it is deployed, because if that is not noted, you may even lose that tool in whole. So for this project, yeah, they milled to about 12,000 feet thereabout, and we took that as the hold up depth. So that's where, proud of that, that's where they discovered the viable hydrocarbon they needed to make revenues from.
Okay, I think we'll take the last question. So a new one came in from Orelo Atoja. How recent was the acquisition of this seismic data that was reprocessed? And why were you so confident the reprocessing will work? Keep in mind existing technology during this seismic acquisition.
So the seismic data that was reprocessed was acquired 1990, 1991, and reprocessed in 2022. The reason why we did not consider at the time acquiring a new seismic, which I believe that's the question, is, or went ahead with processing, comes aside many other reasons from a place of economics. So you have to do your analysis, which is beneficial to you in the short run and in the long run. And then aside the economics, you also look at time. So the marginal field operators that got their assets from the 2020 bid and won it in 2022 had just 3 years to re-enter the well, drill a new well, and submit an FDP. And acquiring a new seismic would take quite some time. So you wouldn't want to, while it will be good for you, you have data with new technologies, you can leverage existing data, reprocess them, and go ahead with your operations. Thank you.
So I should go ahead, right? Okay. No, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and the panelists. I just want to add just a renewable question. I know you've answered it, but I just want to drop another information. I think I mentioned this some time ago. I know today our focus is to produce oil and gas sustainably, right? Because of the demand, and we'll continue to do so. The renewable is evolving, but I also would challenge a matrix to also keep good record of, the wet well as well. And I don't know if you've covered, because I had wanted to ask a question, but I was a bit distracted. If you've got a good documentations around end of well reports, all those type of information, which definitely would have helped you. But looking into the future, say in the next 10 years' time, people will begin to look for saline aquifer for storage of CO2 to support CCUS. And by having a good record of even these wet wells will definitely help the industry at that time when it's quite mature. We don't have any CCUS right now in Nigeria, but I know it's going to happen sometime in the future. And the key places we have to store that CO2 is depleted reservoirs of oil and gas, but also saline aquifer. So even though a well is wet, yes, it might not work today, but tomorrow you can make money from it. Because by the time people are going to inject those CO2 to store it, you have to collect, they have to pay. So I just wanted to add that, to that question about renewable, that maybe not today, but in future, it might also, give you value as a company.
Thank you, P. So we would take about 2 questions here in the room. So the first one will come from the President-elect, and then.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much once again for your responses to the questions. I just want to ask a question with respect to the question that lady asked on acquisition. What did you reprocess? Is it the raw data? The acquired data? Did you have access to ZD data?
Okay. So the data was actually, so basically, yes.
Yes,
so that's what we did.
So
yes.
what if, because there are many fields there that want to reprocess, but they don't have access to it. What if you didn't have access to it? What would you have done after drilling that dry well?
Well, what we would have done is actually what we are currently trying to do in another of our assets, which we have, and we are trying to reprocess. We have to establish communications with NDR, but also with the company that acquired the data ab initio. And once you're able to establish that communication, it's going to need some level of relationship, because while you go through professional means, you'll need to have some conversations offline to be able to get your responses a lot faster, because it's in your interest, but not necessarily in theirs. And I also believe that NUPRC as business enablers are looking to come to the table to help companies to be able to facilitate those conversations. So those are what we are doing on our other assets, and we believe it will yield results in no time. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question is from our former president, Mrs. Pat Ochogo.
Good afternoon all. So my question is easy. You were able to go back into the community, because I want to believe that the previous company, they had good community relations. What are you doing to maintain that?
Well, I can't say if the previous company had good community relations. The previous company is actually, or was Gulf Oil. So given the time frame, we can say, and given what has developed and snowballed into what community engagement is these days, the current realities, we won't be able to comment. We can't really say if they had a good community relationship at that time. We had to, as Matrix, relied on our parent company, the downstream Matrix, their experience in dealing with, because we were coming out newly, their experience in dealing with community issues. And that was what we used, and we were able to overcome. We engaged them, gave them open hand, went to their level, and always, brought them on board in our deliberations, showed them our plans, and, probably also that on their own side was encouraged by the fact that, okay, they know communities around in that side of River State and Imo who had, oil wells. And they knew that there's something in their backyard that is, lying fallow there. So they too were open, to new entrants into their community. I think that's what worked for us. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's about it. I can, from the panel here, thank the panelists, right from the presenter, Tony, to the other panelists, Pius and Akepelu, for this very brilliant outing. The President-elect did mention about breathing life into dead wells. That's one aspect. Another aspect is we have the mandate to get our oil production in Nigeria to 2 million barrels per day in the short term, and up to 3 million barrels by 2027. And how do we do this? It's by getting into all these wells that has been drilled previously, all the fields that has been left unappraised or undeveloped, get them out into production, 3,000, 5,000, 15,000 barrels of oil per day, incrementals, and these are what will lead us. And who are the people that will get this done? It's us, NAPE members, because our ideas find oil and gas. It also borders on, because we've had a lot of discussion on community, on integrity of the well and all that. So the new area that people are looking at now, I just want to drop this, it's called geoethics. It's about where geoscience meets with sociology, meets with philosophy, meets with economics and the environment. So we need to put this into consideration in all that we do. There are areas that we all need to consider as we carry on our project and try to meet the expectations of the industry. So I think that will be the end of this technical aspect of the meeting today. We hand over to the President-elect. Thank you very much, ma'am.
I believe we can do better. Let's give them a round of applause today. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman and the panelists. You did justice to all the discussions and your responses were apt. Thank you very much. Before I call the President to do the presentation of gifts, I want to recognize our fellows who joined us while the program was going on. We have in here Mrs. Patricia Ochobu, FNAPE and past president of NAPE. Thank you for coming, ma'am. We also have Mr. Godwin Oshogu. Thank you FNAPE, thank you for joining us. Online, we have Mr. Alex Taka, FNAPE, past president of this association. Thank you for joining us online. We have Dr. Abimbola Duroquiton, FNAPE, and we have Chief Jim Orife, past president, FNAPE. Thank you for joining us online. So next now is to, before I call the sponsors to appreciate, to give their sponsors remark, I will also want to recognize other members of Matrix, staff of Matrix that have also joined us. We have Tomi Omotayo, General Counsel and Compliance, Matrix EMP. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. We have Fumi Stephen Faleye, Group Head, Corporate Services, Matrix Group. Thank you for joining us. It shows the love Matrix has for NAPE. Not only did you sponsor today's event, you also attended the program. Thank you very much, and we believe we'll continue to have you with us anytime we call on you. At this point, I will call Mr. Akinpe Elushitu, Chief Technical Officer, Matrix Energy, to give the sponsors remark.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending also, even if this is our first time. We also appreciate our being given the opportunity, I will say, to sponsor this. I will say in brief that this is just the beginning. In as much as we are emerging as a giant in the upstream arm of the business, I'm sure down the line, NAPE will also see us as a giant in the activities of the NAPE body in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'll call on our president to come to present the gifts, talking to our chairman and the panelists and the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll continue. So going to the announcements now.
So I just saw our former VP here, Dr. Antonio, former FNAPE. Thank you for joining us. I didn't know you were in here.
Okay, so announcements now. What are we looking at? What's in front of us? Current, upcoming, and the likes. So the very first one is okay. So our technical business meetings, we've had great presentations in the year. The idea is to continue having these great topics across all the different sector of the oil and gas business. So for the month of July, the remaining presentations we'll be having will come from Benin next, and then the UK Europe chapter. That will be on the 24th. I'm sorry. It's supposed to be 24th for Benin chapter, 25th for UK Europe. Abuja will come up 30th. Okay, so we're sure look forward to that. I think the flyers for the Benin has gone off, but Abuja and the UK is still being worked. You will get those when we finalize. Thanks to all those that have supported us with respect to sponsorship and all that. So we still look forward to these sponsorship opportunities. Thank you so much. The next thing that I'd like to mention is that our flagship event for our association, which is the 2025 NAPE Annual International Conference and Exhibition, is still top on our list. As we speak, we are getting closer to the end of the early bird registration. So please go ahead and register so that you don't miss out on that deadline. Don't procrastinate, whatever it is that you need support from us, we will provide if you reach out to us. But then mark the calendar, it's ending on the 1st of September. We do not have that time again. Go ahead and register. Next slide, please. Abstract submission. We are not going to extend this as of today. It's closing on the 31st of August. Submission is via Sessionize. We have the PDF version showing you like a user guide on how to go about this. But if you still have any issue, you can still reach out to the Secretariat, and you can also reach out to me to see how we can support you in that journey. But we also have the online link to our YouTube channel where you can, at your pace, go through the user guide and then do your submission. 31st of August is the deadline. It's the next slide. NAPE NMGS mini conference is upon us, it's almost there. Again, the deadline for abstract submission has been extended to 20th of July. Registration early bird deadline is 14th of July. So please take advantage of these early birds and do your registration, submit your abstracts so that your voice can be heard. Next slide. NAPE at 50, this is our Golden Jubilee celebration. It's something we are proud of, right? So it's something we are really proud of, and all plans are ongoing to make that day a great day. It's coming up on the 14th of August. The president already mentioned that date, and we have mentioned it in previous session. Mark your date. It's limited slots, so get in those registration calls that we have sent out, and quickly register so that at least you have a chance to attend the prestigious occasion. Next slide. This is from Women in Geoscience, WIGE. They are calling on sponsorship to sponsor a child to go back to school. So let's all see how we can oblige this opportunity and then sponsor a child. Okay, this is our last slide. Membership dues. Please go ahead and make your pay your dues for the year. So I know we don't cut off people, but then we should please help renew our membership so that we continue to enjoy all of the initiatives that NAPE offers. Thank you very much. If there's anything that I've missed out, we will still send out through email or our social media handles. A lot of things are ongoing, especially with respect to the conference. Now, just to mention one more thing, on the 14th of August is our Jubilee celebration. We would have our next technical meeting online, right? So the next physical one will be after the celebration, but then there will be another one from National online, I think the first week of August. So mark your calendars for that. The information will be sent out as soon as it's ready. So thank you very much for that. I'll call President-elect now to come up for the vote. Thanks.
We are gradually coming to the end of today's session. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending today's technical and business meeting. To our fellows, our past presidents, thank you for always coming for the program, both physically and online. Our fellows, we appreciate your attendance and we appreciate your questions and contributions. To all our ESCOM members, I have many of them in here, and those online, we thank you for making time to attend. Our president, thank you for coming, for always, attending and coming physically to Lagos to attend. And we thank you for see you more at our the remaining technical meetings in the year. Thank you to all our active members, student members, and we'll hope to see you at our next month technical meeting. Like the PS said, first week in August, we have a technical meeting that will be sponsored by Ali Botin, and it will be online. That one will do that virtually. Following week is when we'll have our 50th anniversary, and after that, we now have First E&P. They will sponsor physically, and it will happen again in this room. So we have 2 technical meetings in August, one virtual, first week in August. You'll see the flyers very soon. And the second one will be in the 3rd week in August, which will be done physically and sponsored by First E&P. So we hope to see you all then. And to our secretariat staff, thank you for the good job you do. And to our sponsors, we really appreciate you. You didn't only sponsor the program, like bringing the speaker, giving the topic. You also sponsored the usage of this room and the lunch that everyone will have here today. So we appreciate you, and we look forward to having you when we call on you next time. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
So thank you, PE, and thank you Thank you, P, and thank you, everyone. So the next one is the launch. So we have, if you observe, we have 3 7 points. The one on my far left is for our ESCOs, executives, and our sponsors. And then the other 7 points on my left and the right is for every other person. So let's please go and have a good lunch. And don't forget to network. Thank you.